Imagine waking up in the middle of the night. Everything is quiet. Everything feels normal. You roll over in your bed, half asleep, eyes still closed, and then you feel it. Two arms wrapped around you. Warm, strong, but somehow different. You open your eyes slowly, and the first thing you see is a crown. Not a Halloween crown. Not a plastic toy crown. A real one. Made from something that glows. Something that pulses with soft blue light in the dark of your bedroom. You look down. There is a woman asleep next to you. But she is not like any woman you have ever seen. Her ears are pointed. Her skin shimmers faintly, like starlight trapped just beneath the surface. Her eyes, even closed, seem to glow with something ancient and powerful, and she is holding on to you like you are the last safe thing in the entire universe. This is the story of Jake Mercer, a regular guy from Manchester, England. He worked a normal job, paid his bills, made his tea, went to bed at 10:30 every single night. He was nobody special, or so he thought. Because the being sleeping next to him that night was not human. She was the queen of the Velhari Empire, the most powerful ruler in 4 galaxies, a woman who had never shown weakness to anyone, never asked for help, never needed anyone. And somehow, on a random Tuesday night in November, she ended up in Jake Mercer's bed, hugging him. And before this story is over, you are going to find out 3 things that will completely change how you see humans, how you see the universe, and how you see yourself. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Jake Mercer was not a complicated man. He was 28 years old. He lived alone in a small flat in the Salford area of Manchester. It was the kind of flat where the radiator made a clicking sound at night, and the downstairs neighbor sometimes played music too loud on Fridays. He had a single bed, a second-hand couch, a kitchen that was just big enough to make pasta without bumping his elbows on the walls, and a small window that looked out over the gray street below. He worked at a warehouse during the day, moving boxes, scanning labels, doing the kind of work that made your back ache by 3 in the afternoon. He came home most nights around 5:30, made himself something to eat, watched a bit of telly, and then fell asleep with the lamp still on. His life was quiet. Routine. Some people might have called it boring, but Jake never thought of it that way. He liked the quiet. He had grown up in a loud house with too many people and not enough space, and the quiet of his own small flat felt like a reward he had earned. That Tuesday night in November was like every other Tuesday night. He came home cold and tired. He made beans on toast. He watched the end of a documentary about deep sea fish. He brushed his teeth. He set his alarm for 6:15 in the morning. He turned the lamp off. He closed his eyes. And he went to sleep. He didn't hear anything unusual. He didn't see a flash of light. He didn't feel a vibration or a strange energy, or anything that the science fiction films always showed when something extraordinary was about to happen. He just went to sleep. And for several hours everything was perfectly normal. It was sometime around 2 in the morning when Jake began to wake up. Not because of an alarm. Not because of a sound from outside. He woke up the way you sometimes do in the middle of the night for no reason at all. Drifting back toward consciousness slowly. Not fully awake. Still wrapped in the warm fog of sleep. He was on his side. Facing the wall. His blanket was pulled up around him the way he always liked it. But something was different. He could feel it before he understood it. There was weight on the bed behind him. Real physical weight. The kind that comes from another person. A mattress was dipping on his left side. And there was warmth. Warmth that was close. Too close. The kind of warmth that meant someone was right there, right behind him, no more than a few inches away. And then he felt the arms. 2 arms. One wrapped gently around his waist. One tucked close to his back. Holding him. Loosely but firmly. The way someone holds on to something they don't want to let go of. Jake's first thought was that he was still dreaming. He actually smiled slightly in the dark. He thought his brain was playing tricks on him. He had done this before, half-woken during a dream, felt things that weren't really there. It would pass. He would roll over, find an empty bed, and go back to sleep. He started to roll over. He stopped. Because the arms were real. When he moved, they adjusted. They shifted slightly, responding to his movement like a sleeping person moves when you disturb them. There was a quiet sound, almost like a breath, a small, soft sound just behind his ear. Jake was now completely awake. His heart rate jumped. His body went very still. His brain was suddenly firing on all levels, processing what was happening, trying to make sense of it, and finding absolutely no sense available. Someone was in his bed. There was a real, physical, living person behind him in his bed right now. He had not let anyone in last night. He lived alone. His front door was locked. He knew it was locked, because he always locked it, always double-checked it, always checked it a second time before he turned the lamp off. It was a habit he had kept since he was a teenager. How was someone in his bed? His breathing became very controlled, very careful, the way your breathing goes when your body understands danger before your brain does. Every instinct he had was sending the same signal at the same time. Don't move fast. Don't panic. Look first. Understand before you react. Very slowly, very carefully, Jake turned over. The room was dark. The curtains were thin, and the orange glow of the street lamps outside pushed through them just enough to see shapes. Just enough to make out the outline of something. Someone. He turned until he was facing the person in his bed. And he looked at her. She was asleep. That was the first thing his brain locked onto. She was completely, deeply asleep. Her breathing was slow and even. Her body was still. Her face, even in the dim orange light of the room, had the completely relaxed expression of someone in deep sleep. Whatever she was, wherever she had come from, right now she was simply asleep. But she was not human. Jake knew that immediately. Not because he panicked. Not because he screamed or jumped back or fell out of bed. He knew it the way you know something in the very core of yourself. The way you know something is wrong before anyone tells you. The way your gut speaks before your mind catches up. She was not human. She was close. Terrifyingly close to human in her shape, in her proportions, in the basic structure of her face. But there were details that were wrong. Details that could not be explained away. Her ears came to a soft, elegant point. Her skin was a deep, warm bronze, but it shimmered very faintly. Like there was something just below the surface that moved when she moved. Like light trapped in water. Her hair was long and dark and spread across his pillow in a way that seemed almost too perfect, too fluid, as if each strand had arranged itself deliberately. And on her head was a crown, a thin, delicate crown, made from something Jake had never seen before. It was not metal, and it was not plastic, and it was not crystal, or rather it was all three and none of them at once. It pulsed with a soft, steady blue light. Slowly. Like a heartbeat. Jake stared at it. He stared at her. He looked at the arms that had been wrapped around him. He looked at her hands, which were resting now against the mattress between them. Her fingers were long and slender and her nails were a deep midnight blue. He looked at her face again. Even asleep. Even in the orange half-dark of his Manchester bedroom. Even with the clicking radiator and the distant sound of a car on the wet street outside. She was the most extraordinary thing he had ever seen in his life. Jake Mercer sat up slowly in his bed. He put his feet on the cold floor. He sat there for a long moment, not moving, just breathing, just thinking. He had a lot of questions. He had no answers at all. The most powerful being in 4 galaxies was asleep in his bed, wrapped in his blanket, resting her head on his second-hand pillow. And he had absolutely no idea what to do next. Jake sat on the edge of his bed for 11 minutes. He counted. He counted because it helped him stay calm. Counting was something real, something grounded. 1, 2, 3. Real numbers. Real time passing. Real air going in and out of his lungs. He sat, and he counted, and he looked at the floor, and he reminded himself to breathe. After 11 minutes, he had made 3 decisions. First, he was not going to run. Running meant leaving her alone in his flat. and something about that felt wrong in a way he couldn't explain. Also, honestly, where was he going to go? It was 2 a.m. in Manchester in November. He had no shoes on. There was nowhere to run to. Second, he was not going to call the police. He thought about it. He genuinely thought about it for about 30 seconds. And then he thought about what that phone call would sound like. He imagined saying the words out loud. Yes, hello. There's a woman in my bed and I think she might be an alien. He put that option away. Third, he was going to make tea. This was perhaps the most British decision any human being had ever made in the history of first contact between species. And Jake was not unaware of that. But tea was something to do. Tea meant going to the kitchen. Tea meant putting the kettle on and listening to it boil and having something warm in his hands and something familiar to focus on. Tea was the correct response to a situation that had no correct response. He stood up carefully from the bed, moving slowly so he wouldn't wake her. He tiptoed to the kitchen. He filled the kettle. He turned it on. He stood in the small kitchen in his socks and his old gray t-shirt and his joggers, and he listened to the kettle begin to heat. And he looked back through the open bedroom door at the faint blue pulse of the crown in the darkness. It was real. It was all completely real. The kettle boiled. He made his tea. He wrapped both hands around the mug. And then, from the bedroom, he heard movement, slow movement. The quiet sound of someone shifting on a bed. The soft rustle of blankets. And then, very clearly, a sharp intake of breath. The kind of breath someone takes when they wake up somewhere unfamiliar and don't immediately know where they are. Jake stood very still in his kitchen doorway. There was a pause. Then, a voice. It was low and clear, and it had an accent that belonged to no country on earth. Not quite a language, not quite sound. Something in between. Something that felt like it bypassed his ears entirely and arrived directly in his mind as meaning, as understanding. The voice said one word. And somehow, impossibly, Jake understood it. Hello. He swallowed. He walked slowly to the bedroom doorway. She was sitting up in his bed. The blanket pooled around her waist. Her long dark hair fell over her shoulders. Her eyes were open now. And they were extraordinary. Large and dark, but lit from within by something amber and deep. Like looking at firelight through colored glass. They were focused on him completely. With a sharpness and an intelligence that made him feel very small and very seen at the same time. She looked at him. He looked at her. The crown pulsed. Jake held up his mug of tea. Do you want one? He said. She looked at the mug. She looked at him. She blinked once. Slowly. What is that? She asked. The words came out carefully. Clearly shaped. Each one deliberate. Tea, Jake said. It's tea. It's hot. It helps. She tilted her head. Helps with what? Everything, Jake said. Mostly with not knowing what's happening. She looked at him for a long moment. And then, very slightly, the corner of her mouth moved. It was not quite a smile. But it was something. I know what is happening, she said. Good, Jake said. You can explain it to me then. He pulled the small chair from his desk and sat down. He put it far enough away that he wasn't crowding her, close enough that they could talk. He sat down and he looked at her, and he waited. She studied him. She studied him the way scientists study something new. Careful, precise, looking for data, looking for understanding. But there was something else in the way she looked at him too. Something that was harder to define, not scientific at all. You are not afraid of me, she said. It came out like a question and a statement at once. I'm scared out of my mind, Jake said honestly. But you did not run. No. Why? Jake thought about it. Because you were asleep, he said. And you looked like you needed it. Something changed in her face. Something very subtle. Some small shift around her eyes that he couldn't quite name. She looked away from him for a moment, toward the window. The orange streetlight pushed through the curtains. Outside, a car passed slowly on the wet road. She looked like she was deciding something. Then, she looked back at him. "My name is Lyra Vashal," she said. "I am the sovereign queen of the Velhari Imperium. I rule 47 star systems across the Orion arm of your galaxy." She paused. "And approximately 9 hours ago, my ship was attacked." Jake said nothing. He took a slow sip of his tea. "We were ambushed," she continued, "in the outer atmosphere of your planet. A faction within my own court. They have wanted my throne for 11 years. She said it flatly, not with emotion, with the voice of someone who has rehearsed neutrality for a very long time. "My ship went down. I used an emergency descent pod. I did not have full control of where I landed. You landed in Manchester," Jake said. "I landed in what appears to be a very small garden behind this building," she said. "I was injured. I was losing consciousness. I found an open window." Jake stared at her. "My kitchen window?" he said. "It was the first window I reached," she said. And there was something in her voice now. Something almost apologetic. "I did not intend to. I simply needed somewhere safe. Somewhere warm. I was losing too much energy. I needed to." She stopped. She looked down at the blanket. "I needed warmth," she said quietly. "Physical warmth. Velhari physiology relies on. It is a biological necessity during cellular regeneration. I found the warmest place in the structure." She looked up at him. "You were asleep. You did not wake. I did not think I would still be here when you did." Jake thought about everything she had just said. He thought about 47 star systems. He thought about her lying in his back garden in the rain, injured and losing consciousness, dragging herself through his kitchen window. He thought about her finding him asleep and curling up next to the warmth of him, because her alien biology needed it to survive. He looked at this queen, this sovereign ruler of more star systems than he could imagine, sitting in his second-hand bed in his small flat in Salford, her crown glowing blue on her head, wrapped in his faded duvet, looking at him with those amber fire eyes. "Are you hurt?" he said. She blinked. "The regeneration is largely complete." "I am functional." "That's not what I asked," Jake said. "Are you hurt?" She looked at him for a long time. "Yes," she said, very quietly. "I am hurt." Jake nodded. He stood up. "I'll make you some tea then," he said. "And you can tell me what comes next." The tea did not go well. Lyra looked at the mug Jake handed her like it was a small and slightly suspicious creature. She turned it in her hands. She brought it close to her face and sniffed it. Her expression moved through several distinct stages. Confusion, doubt, reluctant curiosity. Then she took a sip. She was quiet for a moment. "This is," she began. "Terrible," Jake said. "I only had the cheap bags left. I need to go shopping." "It is not terrible," she said. She took another sip. "It is strange. But it is warm." They sat at his small kitchen table. The flat was quiet. Outside, Manchester was beginning its slow morning start. The sky beyond the window was shifting from black to a deep dark blue. An hour until dawn. Lyra held the mug in both hands the way Jake had shown her, and she talked. She told him about the Velhari Imperium, about 47 systems stretching across thousands of light years of the Orion arm, about a civilization 3,000 years old, about a court built on loyalty and power and the constant, grinding weight of leadership. She had become queen at 19 years old, after her mother's death, and she had been fighting to keep the throne ever since. There were those who believed she was too young, too soft, too focused on diplomacy and alliance building instead of expansion and conquest. A faction called the Dreth Council had been working against her for over a decade, pulling strings, building allies, waiting. Last night they had stopped waiting. Her fleet had been in orbit around Earth. A routine survey mission. Humans were on the Imperium's observation list, a pre-contact monitoring status given to civilizations that were approaching but hadn't yet reached interstellar travel. Jake asked what that meant. She told him it meant Earth was being watched, studied, evaluated, not interfered with. Not yet. The Dreth attack had come without warning. 6 cruisers. They had been hiding in the shadow of Jupiter for weeks. When Lyra's command ship dropped into low Earth orbit, they struck. Her shields held long enough for most of her crew to escape. But her own pod had been hit. It tumbled. She had barely enough control to aim it away from a populated center. She had aimed for what her scanner showed as an open area. The scanner had apparently not been very good at distinguishing between open parkland and a small back garden in Salford. Jake thought about this. "And the people who attacked you?" he said. "Where are they now?" Lyra's expression shifted. The openness she had shown over the last hour pulled back slightly. The Queen came back into her eyes. Calculating. Alert. "That is the problem," she said. She stood up from the table and walked to the window. She looked up through the glass at the dark blue sky. Her crown pulsed twice in rapid succession, like a heartbeat quickening. "My crown functions as a beacon," she said quietly. "It was transmitting my location to my loyal fleet. But the Dreth have technology that can track the same signal." She turned to look at Jake. "They know I survived. They are looking for me." "Looking for you here?" Jake said. "On Earth?" "Within approximately 40 kilometers of my landing site," she said. "My pod's last known trajectory will have given them that range." She looked at him steadily. "This building, this area, they will be narrowing it down." Jake looked at her. He looked at the ceiling, as if he could see through it to the sky above. He thought about Dreth warships quietly circling, scanning, searching. He thought about 40 kilometers. About Salford. About Manchester. "How long do we have?" he said. "Before they locate this exact position? Possibly 2 hours. Possibly less." She said it very calmly. The way you say something calm when you have been trained to stay calm when everything is catastrophic. Jake stood up. He went to the window beside her. He looked up at the sky, now shifting toward deep purple at the edges. He couldn't see anything. No lights, no ships, just the last few stars fading as dawn crept in. He looked at Lyra. "Can you call your people?" he said. "Your loyal fleet. Can you contact them?" "My crown's communication range was damaged in the fall," she said. "I can receive passive signals. I cannot transmit. Not from here. Not with this damage." "So you're trapped?" "Yes. And people are coming to find you." "Yes. Bad people. The worst kind," she said. "The kind who want power more than they want peace." Jake thought for a moment. He looked around his small kitchen. He thought about his warehouse job that started at 8. He thought about his locked front door. He thought about the fact that there was a queen of 47 star systems standing in his kitchen drinking his cheap teabag tea, while alien warships hunted for her from orbit. He took a long breath. "Right," he said. "Then we need to get you somewhere they can't scan. Somewhere underground. Somewhere with a roof made of concrete or metal that might block the signal long enough for us to figure out the next step." She looked at him. "You know of such a place?" Jake grabbed his coat from the hook by the door. "I know the Arndale Center," he said. "It's got about 6 floors of car park underneath it. Concrete ceiling, steel reinforcement, and it opens at 6 for the cleaners." He looked at her crown. "We're going to need to cover that." He went to his bedroom. He came back with a gray beanie hat. He held it out to her. She looked at it. She looked at him. "You want me to wear that?" she said. "You glow," he said. "It's going to be hard to be subtle if you glow." She took the hat. She looked at it for another moment. Then she pulled it carefully over her crown. The glow dimmed. Not completely, but enough. Jake looked at her. She was standing in his kitchen in an ornate silver and gold armor breastplate, pointed ears, alien eyes, wearing a gray Manchester City beanie hat. "Perfect," he said. "Totally normal. Let's go." They made it to the car park. Level 3. Concrete above them. Steel pillars on every side. The air was cold and smelled like oil and old exhaust. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly. A few early cars sat in the shadows. No people yet. Lyra stood in the middle of the space and closed her eyes. The crown under the hat pulsed once, slowly. Then it was steady. Then it went quiet. She opened her eyes. "The passive signal is still receiving," she said. But my emission signature is significantly reduced in here. The metal and concrete are interfering with the breath tracking frequency. She looked up at the ceiling. This is effective. Shopping center engineering, Jake said. Works every time. He sat down on a low concrete barrier between parking bays. He was tired. It was almost 5 in the morning. He had been awake for 3 hours with an alien queen, and he had not fully processed any of it. He thought he was probably going to have a very delayed reaction to all of this at some point. Probably Thursday. He would probably sit down on Thursday and shake for about an hour. Lyra stood nearby. She was very still. She was listening to something. Something Jake couldn't hear. Her head was tilted slightly, her eyes distant, reading data from her crown in a way he was only beginning to understand. I am receiving fleet communications, she said quietly. Long range. Very faint. She was silent for a moment. My first admiral, Kale. He is searching for me. He is concerned. Good, Jake said. That's good. Can you send him anything? Even a short burst? Not from here. Not with this level of damage. She paused. But if I can get to an elevated position, somewhere high, somewhere with a clear line to the sky, and if I remove the crown from the interference of this structure, I can attempt a single compressed pulse. A location marker. It would only transmit for a fraction of a second, but it might be enough for Kyle to detect. Jake thought. There's a multi-story car park on the other side of the city. Rooftop level. About 20 stories up. Clear sky in every direction. That would work, she said. There's a problem, Jake said. She looked at him. If your people can see it, he said. So can theirs. She was quiet. Yes. So the moment you transmit, Jake said, everyone knows exactly where you are. Yes. Your loyal fleet and the people who want you dead. Yes. And whoever gets here first wins. That is essentially correct. Jake rubbed his face with both hands. He thought about this. He thought about what he knew about distances in space, which was not a great deal. He thought about what he knew about how quickly things moved when they needed to. How far away is your fleet? He said. Based on the signal strength of Kale's communications, she said, approximately 4 light hours from your planet's position. Moving at maximum speed after detecting my pod's crash trajectory, perhaps 6 hours from Earth. And the Dreth? Already in orbit, she said. Or very near it. They have been tracking me since the crash. They are the reason I came here. They are the reason I needed to hide. Jake looked at the concrete floor. He did the math. It was not complicated math. The Dreth were close. Lyra's people were 6 hours away. The moment she sent a signal, the Dreth would know where she was. They would come immediately. And her loyal fleet would not arrive in time. Unless. You said they have ships in orbit, Jake said slowly. How many? I cannot know precisely. Based on what I saw before my pod was hit, 2, possibly 3 cruisers. They would not have sent more. It was meant to look like an accident. A small, clean operation. And each of those cruisers, Jake said. How many crew? A standard Dreth cruiser carries approximately 400 personnel. Jake nodded slowly. And they're going to come down here to get you. They cannot risk a surface bombardment, Lyra said. I have value to them. They need me alive. They need me to formally abdicate. Dead, I am a martyr. Alive, I can be used. Something dark moved through her amber eyes. They will send a ground team. Small. Fast. Coming to retrieve me and take me off-world before anyone notices. So a small team, Jake said. In a shopping center car park in Manchester at 5 in the morning. Yes. Jake stood up from the concrete barrier. He put his hands in his pockets. He looked at Lyra and she looked at him. Right. He said. She looked at him. You have an idea. I have the beginning of an idea, Jake said. The middle part needs work. Tell me the beginning. Jake started to speak. He talked for 3 minutes. He laid out a plan that was, by any objective measure, completely improvised, partially insane, and entirely dependent on timing, on human stubbornness, and on the fact that the Dreth had clearly never had to deal with anyone from Salford before. When he finished talking, Lyra was very quiet. This plan relies on human infrastructure in ways I cannot fully evaluate, she said carefully. That's the point, Jake said. And it relies on you, she said. On a human with no weapons, no armor, and no combat training. I've got a plan and a good sense of direction, Jake said. And honestly, in my experience, that's most of what you need. She looked at him for a long moment. Why are you doing this, she said. It came out quietly. Not like a queen asking a question, like a person who genuinely didn't understand. You have no obligation to me. You have no reason to risk yourself. You could leave. You could walk away and let whatever happens happen. Jake thought about it. You needed somewhere warm, he said. You came to my window because you needed help. I don't really know how to see someone who needs help and just walk away. He shrugged. My mom used to say that's how you know someone's worth knowing. What they do when they don't have to do anything. Lyra looked at him. Something in her face did something it had not done before. Your mother sounds wise, she said softly. She was, Jake said. He looked up at the concrete ceiling. Right. We've got about an hour. Here's what we need to do. The Dreth came at 7:14 in the morning. 4 of them. They were not what Jake had imagined when he thought about alien soldiers. He had grown up watching the same films as everyone else. He had expected towering creatures with glowing eyes and weapons that hummed with energy. He had expected dramatic. The Dreth looked, on the surface, almost human. Almost. They were tall and very pale, with a sharpness to their faces that seemed wrong, like a photograph that had been stretched slightly in the wrong direction. Their eyes were a pale silver gray. They moved with military precision, in close formation, communicating not in sound but in tight beamed pulses between devices at their wrists. They came through the north entrance of the car park at ground level, moving quickly, scanning with handheld devices, following Lyra's fading signal to level 3. What they found on level 3 was an empty floor. Jake had moved Lyra 20 minutes before they arrived. He had moved her up to the roof access stairwell, and from there through a maintenance hatch he had known about since 17 years old when he used to sneak up here with his friends on summer nights. It came out on the roof of the adjacent structure. Lower. Less exposed. But with a sliver of clear sky to the east where the sun was now coming up orange and red over the city. Lyra stood at the edge of the roof. The hat was off. The crown pulsed steadily. The morning light caught the shimmer of her skin, and for a moment she looked like something from a story. Something ancient. Something that didn't belong in the gray Manchester skyline, but somehow made it more beautiful by being in it. Jake stood beside her. Ready? He said. Once I transmit, she said, the Dreth below us will know my exact position within seconds. Their team is already in the building. I know. My fleet cannot reach us for nearly 6 hours. I know that too. Jake. She said his name. It was the first time she had used it directly. It landed differently than he expected. If the Dreth reach this roof before Kale arrives, then we deal with that when it happens, Jake said. But right now, you need to let your people know you're alive. So do it. She looked at him. You trust very quickly, she said. I trusted you when you were asleep in my bed, he said. Might as well keep going. She almost smiled. A real one this time. Small but real. She raised her hand to the crown. Her fingers touched it lightly. The pulsing changed. Quickened. Built. The blue light intensified, growing from a soft glow to something vivid and sharp. A needle of light pointing straight up into the morning sky. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3. Then she lowered her hand and the light went dark. Done, she said. Kale will have received it. He will know I am alive. He will know this planet. He is already moving at maximum speed. Good, Jake said. Below them, inside the building, they could hear movement. Fast movement. The Dreth team had adjusted. They were coming up. Jake turned to look at the access door to the stairwell. He had blocked it with 2 lengths of scaffolding pipe from the maintenance space. It would hold for a few minutes. Maybe 10. He turned back and looked at Lyra. So, he said. 6 hours, Approximately. Jake sat down on the roof with his back against a ventilation unit. He looked up at the sky, now fully brightening into a pale winter blue. He looked at the orange sun climbing slowly over the rooftops. He looked at Manchester spread out below, beginning to wake up, people heading to work, cars on the roads, buses, the normal, impossible, beautiful, ordinary machinery of human life just going on as it always did. "Tell me something," he said. Lyra sat down near him, not as close as she had been in his bed, but close enough. "What do you want to know?" she said. "In your fleet," Jake said. "In your entire civilization. Were there no other places you could have been safe? No loyal officers you could have reached? No emergency protocols?" He looked at her. "Why did you come through my window?" She was quiet for a moment. "I have asked myself that question," she said, carefully, "all night while I was recovering. I had enough awareness to ask it." She looked down at her hands. "Velhari emergency protocols would have directed me to a shielded location. Underground, isolated, dark and defensible. My training would have told me to find concealment, conserve energy. Wait, but you didn't do that." "No," she said. "I came through your window." She paused. "I was barely conscious. I was operating on something below rational decision-making, something deeper, and what I was moving toward was light, and warmth, and the sound of a living thing breathing." She looked at him. "You were asleep. I could hear you breathing from the garden, and something in me moved toward it." Jake looked at the sky. "The warmth thing," he said. "The biological necessity you mentioned. Is that really what it was?" She was silent for longer this time. "Partially," she said finally. "Velhari cellular regeneration does require proximate thermal energy. That is a fact." Another pause. "But I have been injured before. I have regenerated before. I have never sought this out. I have never—" She stopped. "Never let anyone be close," Jake said quietly. She didn't answer. Which was an answer. Jake nodded slowly. "You're the queen. You've been fighting for your throne since you were 19. You haven't had anyone you could just rest next to." The silence that followed was long, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Below them, there was a heavy thud against the blocked stairwell door. The scaffolding pipe held. "The Velhari value strength," she said eventually. "Self-sufficiency. Independence. To need another person is considered a vulnerability. A queen cannot appear vulnerable. Even to herself?" Jake said. She looked at him. He looked back. "Here's what I think," Jake said. "I think you've been carrying something for a very long time. And last night your body went to the place that felt safe because your body was smarter than all the training you've ever had. I think that's not a weakness. I think that's the truest, most human." He stopped. He almost smiled. "Most alive thing about you." She looked at him for a long time. The door shuttered again. Harder. "We may be about to die," she said. "Not dramatically, just as a fact." "We might," Jake agreed. "And you are talking about feelings." "Seemed like the right time," Jake said. That was when she laughed. A real laugh. Short. Surprised. Almost startled out of her. Like she hadn't known it was coming. Like she hadn't heard herself do it in a very long time. And in the orange morning light of a Manchester rooftop, with alien soldiers beating against a blocked door 6 feet away and warships 6 hours from Earth, Lyra Vishal, queen of the Velhari Imperium, put her head back and laughed. And Jake Mercer looked at her and thought that he had never seen anything more extraordinary in his entire life. The door broke open at 7:41. The scaffolding pipe held for 18 minutes. Jake had figured on 10. His estimation skills were apparently better than he thought. The 4 Dreth soldiers came through fast. 2 went left, 2 went right. Standard flanking. Efficient. Professional. The kind of movement that came from a lot of training and a lot of practice and very little expectation that anyone was going to put up meaningful resistance. Jake stepped in front of Lyra. Not because he had a weapon. Not because he had a plan. He stepped in front of her because it was the only thing he had to offer. The lead Dreth stopped. It looked at him with those pale silver eyes. It tilted its head slightly, the way you tilt your head at something unexpected. Something that doesn't fit the calculation. Move, it said. The word came through the translation technology at its wrist, flat and mechanical. No, Jake said. The Dreth looked at him for a moment. Then it looked past him at Lyra. Then it looked back at him. It seemed genuinely puzzled, not angry, not threatening, puzzled. Like the thing standing in its way was so unexpected that it needed a moment to process it. You are human, it said. Yes, Jake said. You have no weapons. No. You have no augmentation, no combat training detectable, no armor. Correct on all counts, Jake said. Then why, the Dreth said. Are you standing there? Jake thought about it. Because she came to my window, he said. And I'm not going to let anything happen to her. The four Dreth looked at each other. Something passed between them in their wrist-pulse communication. Jake couldn't read it, but it looked, somehow, like confusion. You will be harmed, the lead Dreth said. Maybe, Jake said. But you'll have to go through me first, and I'm not moving. There was a pause, a real pause, long enough that Jake began to wonder if the Dreth had some kind of cultural or procedural issue with the situation they were in. Like maybe their training had not covered the specific scenario of a completely undefended human civilian standing between them and their target, and refusing to move for no tactical reason whatsoever. And then the sky lit up. It was not gradual. It was not subtle. One moment the pale blue Manchester winter sky was empty. The next moment it was full of light. Long, brilliant lines of deep gold and white, like someone had drawn the sky open with a bright pen, cutting down from orbit. 5, 6, 7 lines of light, each one resolving as it entered the atmosphere into a shape, into a ship, into Valhari warships dropping from the upper atmosphere at a speed that turned the air around them into fire. Jake looked up. His mouth was open. The Dreth looked up, all four of them. Their formation broke for the first time. Their discipline cracked. Just slightly. Just enough. Lyra stepped forward. She stood beside Jake. She stood straight. Her crown blazed. Full power. No hat. No hiding. A blue light so intense it cast shadows in the morning sun. She looked at the Dreth. 6 hours, she said, to Jake. Not the Dreth. We said 6 hours. It's been 2.5, Jake said quietly. Kale always was impatient, she said. The ships came down. Not landing. Hovering, low enough that the displaced air hit the rooftop like a warm tide. Low enough that Jake could see the details of the hulls, the shifting panels, the lights, the sheer impossible size of them blocking out chunks of the sky. From the lead ship, a beam of light extended downward to the roof, and from it stepped a figure, tall, in full Valhari armor, with the kind of military bearing that made the air around it seem to stand to attention. Kael. He looked at the Dreth. He looked at Lyra. He looked at Jake. He said something in Valhari that the translation didn't catch. He asked who you are. Lyra said to Jake quietly. Jake Mercer. Jake said. Kael looked at him for a long moment. Then he looked at the Dreth soldiers, who were now very still and very surrounded by a rooftop filling with Valhari soldiers from secondary beams. Then he looked at Lyra and spoke again. He wants to know how you survived, Lyra translated, and why you are on a civilian rooftop in a human city. A pause. And who kept you safe? She looked at Jake. He did, she said. Kael looked at Jake again. The Valhari First Admiral, commander of the Loyal Fleet. A man who had served the throne through 3 decades of political warfare and 2 active conflicts. He looked at this human in a waterproof jacket and gray trainers standing on a rooftop in Manchester at 7 in the morning. And Kael put his fist to his chest. A formal Valhari gesture. A gesture of respect, offered to equals. Jake, not knowing what else to do, nodded back. The Dreth soldiers were taken into custody. The ships took holding positions above the city, cloaked within seconds to avoid human detection. The immediate crisis was over. Lyra spoke with Kyle for 20 minutes in rapid Velhari. Jake sat on the ventilation unit, his legs stretched out, looking at the ships above him that no one else in Manchester could see, and thought about how strange his Tuesday had turned out to be. Eventually, Lyra came back to him. She stood in front of him. Kyle was behind her, a respectful distance away. The Dreth Council will be brought before the Velhari Tribunal, she said. The fleet is secure. My position is safe. She looked at him steadily. It is over. Good, Jake said. I need to return to my flagship, she said. There is much that requires my attention. Repairs. Political restructuring. An investigation. She paused. I will be occupied for some time. I imagine so, Jake said. Jake. She said his name again. That same quality it had had on the roof before. Something careful and deliberate in it. What you did, standing in front of those soldiers, with nothing to defend yourself with. She stopped. In the Velhari Imperium, we have a concept, Velkai. It means the courage that has no strategic basis, the bravery that cannot be explained by survival instinct or training, or logical calculation. The kind of bravery that only exists because of what a person chooses to be. She looked at him very directly. It is considered the rarest form of strength in the known universe. Jake looked at his trainers. He looked back up at her. I was terrified, he said. I know, she said. That is exactly what makes it Velkai. They looked at each other. Will I see you again? Jake said. He didn't know why he asked it. But he asked it. Lyra was quiet for a moment. The Velhari Imperium has never made formal contact with Earth, she said carefully. To do so would require the consent of your world governments, a process that would take years by your standards. She paused. But the Imperium does have observers, individuals who monitor certain points of interest on pre-contact worlds. Points of interest, Jake said. Yes. Am I a point of interest? She looked at him for a long, quiet moment. The morning light was fully up now. The city was awake. Somewhere below, Manchester was going about its day completely unaware of the ships above it. The alien queen on its rooftop. The moment that had just passed. You are, Lyra said quietly, the most interesting point of interest I have encountered in 4 galaxies. She reached out and touched his hand briefly, her fingers against his. Just for a second. Warm. Then she stepped back. She straightened. She was the queen again, fully and completely. She turned to Kale. She gave a quiet command. The transport beam took her. She was gone. Jake sat on the rooftop for a while after that. He looked up at the sky. At the empty, perfectly normal Manchester sky where 7 alien warships had been hovering 4 minutes ago. He looked at his hand. He thought about a crown that glowed blue in the dark of his bedroom. He thought about tea in a concrete car park and a gray beanie hat. He thought about courage that had no strategic basis. And then Jake Mercer stood up, straightened his jacket, and went back down the stairs. He had work at 8, but 3 days later, when he came home from his shift and found his kitchen window slightly open, and found 2 cups of tea already made and steaming on his small kitchen table, and found a certain amber glow coming from his living room, he stopped in his doorway. And he smiled. You're going to need a better cover story, he said into the flat. From the living room, quiet and warm, I thought of one. He walked in, the door closed behind him. Here's the thing about this story that matters most. It is not about an alien queen, not really. It is about what humans carry that the rest of the universe apparently has been watching for a very long time. In every Hayfi story, in every tale where humanity meets the cosmos and surprises it, the thing that surprises is never our weapons, never our technology, never our size or our strength, or our intelligence. It is always the same thing. It is warmth. It is the fact that Jake did not run, that he made tea, that he asked if she was hurt, that he stepped in front of something he couldn't fight because someone had come to his window needing help, that his first instinct, in every moment of this impossible night, was to take care of the thing in front of him. Velkai. The courage with no strategic basis. Here is what the Velhari apparently could not understand. What even the Dreth, with all their tactical precision, could not calculate for. Humans do things that don't make sense. They stand in front of danger for people they met 8 hours ago. They make tea at 2 in the morning for alien queens. They leave a window open when they come home, just in case something extraordinary needs somewhere warm to land. That's not weakness. That's not naivety. According to every Hephi story ever told, in every corner of the imaginative human mind, that is exactly what makes us worth watching, worth visiting, worth coming back to. 3 days later, Jake Mercer came home to warm tea in an amber glow. And somewhere in orbit, a Velhari admiral looked at his long-range scans and saw the Queen's beacon had re-engaged over a small city in northern England. And he smiled to himself, and he filed it under Velkai. And he left them alone. If this story opened your eyes to something bigger than you expected, you are in the right place. Because we are just getting started. Jake Mercer started this story as nobody special. He ended it as the only human in recorded Velhari history to be formally recognized with the Velkai designation. He ended it as the reason an alien queen came back to a small flat in Salford, instead of returning to a throne room that stretched across 47 star systems. He ended it as proof of something this channel believes deeply. That ordinary people are extraordinary when it counts. That warmth is a superpower. That the courage to show up for someone who needs you, even when you gain nothing from it, even when every logical instinct says walk away, is the rarest and most powerful thing in any universe. And that sometimes the most important thing you can do is leave your window open. If this story hit you somewhere real, do 3 things right now. Hit that like button, because it helps more people find stories like this one. Subscribe to the Hephi Sci-Fi channel, because this is just one story in a universe full of them. And we put out new content every week that will make you see humanity differently. And share this video with one person, one friend, one family member, one person who needs to be reminded that ordinary people do extraordinary things. Comment below right now, what would you have done if you woke up and found Lyra in your bed? Run? Call the police? Make tea? Let us know, because we read every single comment, and your answer might inspire the next story we write. And if you want to go deeper, our next video is going to take everything you felt watching this and multiply it. We are exploring another story where humanity faces something the entire galaxy declared impossible. And humanity does it anyway. Click that video right now. It is waiting for you. We will see you in the next one.